Karen read for us Luke 6:27 to 38, and it is part of the lectionary of the church today. So if you think that I've conspired to read something that I want to read, not true. This is the church across the world saying this is what we should be looking at this morning, and it fits in quite well with what we are talking about within our congregation. Over the last, not last couple of years, over the last many years, we've seen congregations dwindling, closing down, and worship service like this morning are attended by a few that is actually left within the church. But if we look at that and see that it is not only within the United Church of Canada, but that it is across all denominations across the world, we start to ask the question why. And this question has been asked here and in many places many, many times. And then there are people that say, but the picture is not that dark. If you go to Africa, for instance, there are enormous ethnic churches. In South Africa, the Zionist Christian Church is the biggest denomination. It's an ethnic church that mingled their theology between the African culture and the Christian culture. Very unique. And in that way, they answer to the needs of their people. And during Easter weekend, which is coming up, there is thousands, literally thousands of them, gathering just outside the city of Polokwane, where their Pope or their leader would do the Easter Sunday and other worship services. And then I've told you this before, on the Tuesday after the Easter weekend, the Standard Bank in Polokwane closes down because they just count the money of the Zionist Christian Church that came in. It is literally bags full of money because these people contribute in cash and they bring that, and that needs to be counted. So there are successful ethnic churches. There are also around here a couple of traditional churches that goes on well with the traditional rhetoric of fear and anger, and that captures a certain audience and speak to that audience, and people go there. There are also what we call the mega churches with a very simplistic theology, but a big band and loud singing, and that draws a lot of people in. So praise and worship are very important in these churches that are successful. If you go to the Zionists in Polokwane, you are just captured because those people can sing. There's not big organs leading or big orchestras leading the congregational singing. It is thousands of people just harmonizing themselves and singing the songs. It is quite something to see that and to experience that. But sadly this morning we must also be very honest about all of this. If praise and worship services throughout the history, which is now almost 2,000 years for the Christian church, if that was a successful operation, why haven't it changed the world? Why do we still have the wars that's still going on? Why do we still have the poor amongst us, the challenged out in the streets of our own city? Why is it that the change that Jesus talked about is not taking place? Doesn't matter how big the mega churches become, doesn't matter how small the traditional churches become and die out, the change doesn't happen. And I think this morning we must be honest with ourselves when we stand here and saying maybe the intention behind the change is what is lacking. We know, and this is scientifically proved, that from your intention you create your thoughts, and that flows out into your world. That's how we are all creators, as the Bible also states. So if we all had this thought of worship service and then go out with that and change the world, surely it should have happened. But in the scripture reading of this morning, Jesus said something very interesting. He said, "This is my word." And then, as if he looks to the side, rolling his eyes, he adds, "for those who hear it." "This is my word," he said, "for those who listens and who hears it this morning." And that tells us something. It tells us about the problem that we have, that we do not take the advice of Jesus, first of all, seriously, that advice of Jesus does not have impact on our lives because we are not the people that hear. Because if we did hear, there certainly would have been a change in our lifestyle. And that is the important thing that we as Christians within our Christian religion completely miss. The Christian religion is not a refrain of dogma and verses from the Bible that we can just say every Sunday and then go home and think we have changed the world. As long as that thinking goes on, there will not be change in the world. The Christian religion has for many and many years labeled good Christianity by the words you are repeating in the worship services on a Sunday, the songs you are singing, and the engagement that we have here. But when we go out, there's nothing. Because the Christian religion that Jesus taught, and by the way, he didn't teach a religion, he gave us advice about life. He didn't come and say, okay, from now on Sundays you will gather and worship me and sing your beautiful songs, and oh boy, you will see the change in this world. He never said that. But what did he say? He said, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you. And what do? We go out and just go and look at your Facebook feed, your stream. We go out, Christians, ministers in this United Church of Canada, posting things like, boycott the United States, they are against us, we will retaliate. Christians writing on their Facebook pages, we will get them, we will show them what patriotism is all about. And Canada, the country that I've learned to come to know way back in 2010, when I was walking the Camino de Santiago, a group of girls joined our little group. And I said to them, I'm thinking of joining the United Church of Canada. And they said, oh boy, that is fantastic people. They are loving, they are kind, they bring change. They forced the government to open the laws of this country to make it legal for same-sex weddings. It is you, this church, that did that. And everybody in the world knows about that. So they told me about the Canadian people of compassion, of love, of respect for each other, and what have become of this Canada that I came to know over the last couple of years. It is a church and a nation that is busy with retaliation all the time. We'll show you. You dare to do this to us? We will do more back to you. You recognize yourself? I hope so. Then Jesus says, to him who strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And for him who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Now, as we always say, to understand the words of Jesus, we need to go back to the time when he spoke these words within the community and the society and the culture that he spoke these words, and also in the language. So if you go back 2,000 years ago, when Jesus was walking the dusty roads of Palestine, and he spoke these words to the people, what was the common thing that happened in those days? They came from Babylon, where they were the slaves. Then they came back and they rebuilt the temple and they rebuilt the nation. It went okay for a couple of years. Then the Greeks came. And they overthrow all of them and they suppress them and they make them again the slaves of the Greek Empire. Then the Maccabean revolt came and they threw off the Greek shackles that was placed on them, and they said, at last we are free. And then what happened? Here comes the Roman Empire. And they did exactly the same to them, enslaved them. So to be a slave in Israel was something that everybody knew about, because they were enslaved for hundreds of years. And an owner of a slave had the right to slap this slave if they didn't do what they needed to do, because that slave is the possession of the owner. So he can do with that slave whatever he wants. It's like you can do whatever you want with your shoes, because it's your shoes. If you want to throw it away, throw it away. And that's the way the society looked upon slaves. Now, very interesting, when you slap somebody, and maybe we should bring this back in our society and just slap each other a bit more. So when you slap somebody, so the owner will stand here and the slave will stand in front of him, facing him. And the way they did it that was acceptable for the time is you slap somebody with the back of your right hand, like this. So if I face you and you slap me with the back of your right hand, you will slap me on which cheek? On the right cheek. So it's right backhand on the right cheek. So that's how it worked. Now Jesus comes and he doesn't say, oh, just lie down, take all these hits, passive resistance and everything will be fine. No, he gives them excellent advice. He said, when this owner slaps you, turn the other cheek. What happens? He slapped me with his right hand on the right cheek. If I turn the left cheek, he can't slap me. He has to go with the forehand to slap me on the left cheek. You get that? And the moment an owner or a leader in the society of that day did that, he was humiliated because he didn't follow the standard rules that was acceptable in that society. Isn't that just excellent advice? Yes, you turn your other cheek, but you do it in such a way that you teach the other person a lesson. You think, you slapped me, do it again. And then I'll show you that this is not the way to do it. There's a better way. And then he went on and says, well, after being slapped around, and they come and they take your coat, offer them your shirt as well. Why? Because there was also certain standards in the community of the day. So you know how a coat works, especially in this weather where we live in this last couple of weeks. So a coat keeps you warm, and when you take it off, you have your, as the Canadians taught me very well, layer. You have your next layer on, and it works. I must commend you. Your advice works. So then there's a shirt, but the shirt in that time was something different than the shirts that we have today. It was kind of a tunic that goes beyond the knees. If you see traditional Muslim people in Hamilton streets, you will see that dress. They still dress in the same way. So it's this kind of shirt that goes beyond the knees. And when you take that off, this happens. You're naked. Because they didn't have lingerie. They didn't have our beautiful underwear in those days, you know. They didn't use it. I see tomorrow is tartan day in Scotland. Do you know what a tartan is? It's those Scottish kilts that they kill. Yeah. Pardon?
The tartan is the plaid.
Yeah, the specific material. Yeah. So every family, and my great-great-grandfather that came from Scotland, that's why my middle name is Tate, we have a tartan. So tomorrow they celebrate that. So every kilt that you wear will be in your family's tartan. You've always asked the question, what do they wear under it? Nothing. The same with these shirts that the people at that time wore. This long tunic hanging over their knees. There's nothing under it. Remember, it's a warm country. It's semi-desert. They don't need the layering that we need here in Canada. So the moment Jesus told these people, give your shirt, you are naked. And who is the one that's humiliated? The man that took your coat and now even took your shirt. This is excellent advice from Christ, where he taught us by doing something, not by retaliating, not by fighting anger with anger, not by fighting fire with fire, but by being clever and rehem. A couple of Sundays ago, we spoke about the word rehem. It's the Aramaic word that we translate as love. Rehem in the Aramaic language means to go to your center and find there the compassion. Because that is what is in your center, the rehem, what we also call the I am, the breath of God, the Christ. There's many names for it within our tradition. But what it teaches us is to go back to your center, find the compassion there, and be it and live it. Then he demonstrates that. When he was in Nazareth, his home village, they dragged him out because they didn't like what he was saying. You know, he was stepping on toes. And they wanted to throw him off a cliff. Jesus didn't say, you can throw me, I'm coming back and you'll get it. No, he went into his center, into his rehem. And in that silence, he just walked through them. And they didn't touch him. Demonstrating that when we share that which is in here, we change the world. That is what's happening. So from the cliff, he taught them what it's like to practice faith. Jesus knew that the people of the time did not really understand what they were doing. He ended his life on the cross by saying a prayer for everybody that is ignorant and doesn't know what they are doing. And in that prayer he said, Father, forgive them because they do not know what they are doing. In that he demonstrated this whole concept that he was teaching to the people of the time. You do not need to retaliate. You do not need to give anger where there is anger, to give hatred where there is hatred. You do not need that. All you need is to practice what I preach. And that is Christianity. Christianity is not repeating a set of rules and a set of texts from the Old or New Testament. Christianity is changing behavior, and it starts with me. That is Christianity. And when I change my behavior, it has a ripple effect, and everybody else's around me, their behavior will start changing. Michael Roer is a Franciscan priest You can go and visit him. He lives in Albuquerque in New Mexico. And he writes the following, which I really associate with. Christianity is a lifestyle, a way of being in the world that is simple, non-violent, shared, and loving. However, we made it into an established religion and all that goes with that, and avoided the lifestyle change itself. One could be warlike, greedy, racist, selfish, and vain in most of Christian history, and still believe that Jesus is one's personal Lord and Savior, and be saved. The world has no time for such silliness anymore. The suffering on earth is too great. And what will change the suffering of this world? When we change ourselves and we start living the Christian message, being the Christian message. That is the only way we will change the world. Repeating a lot of sentences is silliness. The time for that is gone. It's over and done with. So after saying that, Jesus went on. Be sons and daughters of the Most High. For God is kind to the ungrateful and the selfish. Be merciful, even as your Father is merciful. Judge not, and you will not be judged. Condemn not, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. That is love in action. When we do that, when we live that way, we live from here, from the heart. We do not live from scriptures, texts, repeating that, sing it in our songs. It's nice. Binds us together. There's a purpose for it. But we need to go further. We need to give the extra step. We need to give, and I recall someone also said this, we need to walk the extra mile. So before we flood our Facebook feed with all these retaliations and calls for patriotism and calls to hit back where it will hurt the most, that's also words that I've read the last couple of weeks. Before we do that, maybe we should look self and say, thank you for the opportunity that you give us to show what it means to be people of love and compassion. We do not want to be the 51st state, but we want to be compassionate and loving neighbors. We want to open our hearts and show what it means to love, even if we are struck in the face, even if you take my last shirt and leave me naked, even if you judge me and condemn me, even more so when all of that is happening. We are probably in the time where there are the most opportunities that we can ever think of to do the lifestyle change Jesus spoke of and to be the love that he brought. Amen.